Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Believes focus should be placed on getting more people vaccinated rather than booster shots. Government lifts travel ban on South African countries. In sports, Cricket West Indies and the Pakistan Cricket Board have decided that the 3 one-day internationals part of the tour will be postponed until June next year. I'm Anthony Lugg. Here are the details. Up first this afternoon, at least one health expert is this afternoon insisting that the government should focus on ensuring more Jamaicans receive a first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. Epidemiologist Professor Peter Figueroa was reacting to the announcement that as of today, Jamaicans 18 years and older would be offered a booster shot in a bid to arrest the Omicron variant of the coronavirus.
Initially, the ministry was only offering boosters to people over 60 years old and health workers. Only the Pfizer and the Johnson & Johnson vaccines are being offered as boosters. But now, Director of Family Health Services in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Melody Ennis, says AstraZeneca is not being used as a booster.
The vast majority of persons in country receive the AstraZeneca vaccine, and AstraZeneca is not at this time recommending that AstraZeneca be used as a booster shot.
With the move to make booster shots available to Jamaicans 18 years and older, the World Health Organization has argued that vaccines are still needed for first doses across the globe. It's the reason epidemiologist Professor Peter Figueroa wants those who are yet to receive the jab to be prioritized.
People who have not yet been vaccinated, and remember, approximately 50% of our seniors over the age of 60 have not yet been vaccinated with even 1 dose, much less 2 doses of vaccine. Those are the persons who are most vulnerable to both the circulating Delta variant and the Omicron.
According to Professor Figueroa, the push to offer booster shots will result in more harm than good. He says the government should focus on getting more Jamaicans fully vaccinated before the rollout of booster shots.
But if you're going to do boosters, then I think it should be focused in our context specifically on those persons who are elderly, who are over the age of 60, who are fully vaccinated.
The issue was discussed on the morning agenda on Power 106. O'Shane Masters, TVJ.
The travel ban placed on a number of African countries has been lifted. The Ministry of Health made the announcement at a press conference yesterday. Shamela Pullen reports.
On November 27, the Jamaican government imposed travel restrictions on passengers from 8 African countries following discovery of the Omicron variant of COVID-19. Almost 2 weeks later, the ban has been lifted. Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton made the announcement at a press conference on Wednesday.
So persons coming from South Africa and the other African countries are now able to travel to Jamaica. The justification for that, firstly, the ban, though some objected, was instituted because of the initial information around the Omicron variant, which was still evolving, but nevertheless, that's the information we have. We never have perfect information. We act on it, and it was in keeping with what we had done in the past.
Dr. Tufton says with the variant in several countries around the world, it is not practical for the government to shut out certain countries.
Because there are so many other places where the virus can originate from, and it's never intended to be a permanent arrangement. It's intended to slow down the entry for it, to understand it more and to prepare for it. So the fact that it is now in over 70 countries gives no value whatsoever to have a ban on one part of the world. So that travel ban, we made that recommendation and the Cabinet has approved or agreed.
There is still no confirmation as to whether the Omicron variant is in Jamaica. The Ministry of Health says it sent samples overseas for testing, but the ministry says it's still waiting to get those results. Meanwhile, Dr. Tufton is calling for Jamaicans to take the COVID-19 vaccines. He said that the Jamaican government has received some 200,000 doses of Pfizer vaccine from the U.S. government. This has now increased the overall vaccine capacity to over 1 million, which includes the 4 different brands.
It means that we now have just under 400,000 doses of Pfizer, 396,630 to be exact. In storage, we have AstraZeneca, some 386,100. For Johnson & Johnson, we have 130,635. And for Sinopharm, we have 198,470.
Shamela Pullen, TVJ News.
In the meantime, the Ministry of Health says a few vaccination sites have started to categorize healthcare workers after they received the COVID-19 jab in order to provide more accurate data. Sandy Williams reports.
The Medical Association of Jamaica, MAJ, and the Nurses Association of Jamaica, NAJ, have called for the Ministry of Health to shed light on the categories of healthcare workers which remain unvaccinated against COVID-19. This after Chief Medical Officer Dr. Jacqueline Bisesa Mackenzie had reported that a little over 50% of healthcare workers are vaccinated. Director of Family Health Services in the Health Ministry, Dr. Melody Ennis, says there is no directive for sites to separate the data. However, she says only about 3 sites have started to separate the categories of healthcare workers who have been vaccinated.
When you look in general, without this aggregation, we have the Western region, which looks at 4 parishes, St. James, Trelawney, Westmoreland, Hanover. For healthcare workers in general, they are at about 76%. In the Southeast, Kingston and St. Andrews, St. Catherine, they are at about just under 80% of healthcare workers in general being vaccinated. I don't have the other 2 regions out of the top of my head at this point. So that's where we're running. But in the 3 or so facilities that have done the disaggregation, the doctor uptake seemed to be a little bit more than the nurses.
The 3 sites disaggregating the data show that about 90% of vaccinated healthcare workers are doctors and 60% are nurses. MAJ President Dr. Brian James has said more than 90% of his members have received the jab. Sandy Williams, TVJ News.
To the latest COVID stats now, 1 more Jamaican has died from COVID-19, bringing the overall death toll to 2,433. Meanwhile, 59 new cases of COVID-19 were recorded yesterday from 1,972 test samples. The overall case count is 91,927. The COVID-19 positivity rate is now 3.4%. 103 people have been hospitalized with the virus. 15 of those admitted are severely ill, while another 2 are in critical condition. In the last 2 weeks, there have been 484 active COVID-19 cases. In the meantime, 29 more Jamaicans have recovered from the virus, bringing the total recoveries to 63,624. And we now go to a break, but stay with us. More stories when we return. Back to the Midday News, and thanks for staying with us. The Agriculture Ministry is reporting that the police have made 41 arrests for Praedial larceny since the start of the year. The figure was up to October. Agriculture Minister Audley Shaw provided the update yesterday as he reacted to the killing of 76-year-old Henry Jones and 42-year-old Brian Chambers. The 2 goat farmers who went missing in Grange Hill, Westmoreland on Monday were found murdered Tuesday morning. Investigators said they were abducted and killed by goat thieves. Mr. Shaw also condemned the shooting of a goat farmer and 2 other persons in Spanish Town, St. Catherine, a week ago. The Agriculture Minister urged farmers not to take matters into their own hands, but to report incidents of Praedial larceny to the police. He said farmers should also work with the ministry's Praedial larceny prevention unit to implement measures at their farms to deter thieves. The government will not know before next year if teachers will accept the 4% wage offer which they have been offered. President of the Jamaica Teachers Association, Winston Smith, says he received the official offer from the Finance Ministry earlier this week. However, he says discussions are needed with the delegates.
The content of the response I will not be discussing yet because I have not gone to my constituents, and I'd rather for them to hear from us before we discuss anything in the media as it relates to what the contents are. Based on the strictures of our association, to call a delegates meeting, I need 14 clear days, and I have to discuss it with my salaries committee first, then we call a delegates meeting.
The Jamaica Teachers Association and the government have been at loggerheads over a wage increase for months. The teachers have rejected both the 2% and 3% offers which were previously made by the Finance Ministry. And to other news now, with just over 2 weeks before the highly anticipated Watch Night service, churches island-wide have already begun making plans to ring in the new year. But with the 100 gathering limit for places of worship, at least one church in Portmore St. Catherine says those looking to attend will be able to register soon. For Christians in Jamaica, Watch Night service has always been a significant part of their lives. And it still is, even though the format of the service has changed, with congregants being forced to worship virtually.
It's not like the norm, but once you have the Holy Spirit within you, you can worship wherever you are because Lord did not have a church. He walks and person just follow, and that's where the worship went through.
You can feel it in the atmosphere as well. You know, people don't have the same kind of energy, and that is not to say that people don't have their connection and their relationship, but we are used to fellowshipping with the brethren. It's for these reasons churches across the island have welcomed the announcement by Prime Minister Andrew Holness that on December 31, the curfew has been extended to 1 hour after midnight. Dr. Delford Davis is senior pastor at the Power of Faith Ministries in Portmore St. Catherine.
Whilst we would have hoped that the number would have been increased, but we're happy that we will be able to meet, and of course the reduced number in the places of worship, and we'll reach out to other persons by virtual audiences.
Under the new guidelines, the gathering limit for places of worship is currently 100. The Prime Minister has warned, however, that crusades and conventions are not permitted. With December 31 fast approaching, we asked how the 100 congregants would be selected for Watch Night service at the Power of Faith Ministries.
We do not have a reserved seat situation here. It is a first come, first served basis based on how you make your application.
Maybe I have to register early, or being as if I'm on the praise and worship team already, I know I will be one of the numbers. So
the church says it also plans to monitor the crowd that may converge on the property on New Year's Eve.
it's good to know that we can come out at Watch Night, because as Christians, that's the only thing we anticipate, because we're not going to party. We're not going down by waterfall, so we're anticipating coming to church, counting down the new year to come in, knowing that the Lord have allowed us to see another year. So it's a blessing.
The Miss World 2021 pageant has been postponed after 17 people involved in the competition tested positive for COVID-19. The finals for the Global Beauty Contest were to be held tonight in Puerto Rico, when reigning Miss World Tony Singh from Jamaica was scheduled to crown her successor. Puerto Rican health authorities said while it wasn't immediately clear how many of the participants were among those infected, the Miss World organization said there were about 7 isolated candidates with possible coronavirus infections. The annual competition, which is hosting its 70th event this year, was cancelled in 2020 owing to the coronavirus pandemic, making Miss Singh the longest reigning Miss World in history. Miss World organizers say while none of those who tested positive required hospitalization, they have to follow a mandatory 10-day isolation period. Miss World chairwoman Julia Morley told the media that candidates who tested positive will not be allowed on stage at the finals if they do not produce a negative PCR test. However, they will still be in the running for the crown. And it's now time for the Business Minute with O'Shane Masters.
The Bank of Jamaica, BOJ, is projecting that less money will be in circulation in the island at the end of December compared to the corresponding period last year. It's projected that the value of currency issued by the bank will increase by $23.1 billion, or 11.3% relative to the stock at the end of November. The central bank says the forecast is below the 5-year average growth rate of 16.4% for the month of December. In business internationally, the Bank of England has raised interest rates for the first time in more than 3 years in response to calls to tackle surging price increases. The Monetary Policy Committee voted 8-1 in favor of the increase to 0.25%. Rates were cut to a record low of 0.1% in March last year in response to the effects of the coronavirus pandemic. The increase came despite fears that the Omicron variant of COVID-19 could slow the UK economy by causing people to spend less. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Shane Masters.
We go now to the top regional and international stories. Here's Sandy Williams.
In regional news, journalists in Suriname have planned to stage a protest outside Parliament's building on Thursday as they intensify pressure on Vice President Ronnie Brunswick, whose security guards assaulted a media worker as he was carrying out his duties earlier this week. They have also agreed to boycott Brunswick by not reporting on anything from him or his cabinet. The development comes 2 days after journalist Jason Pinas had his phone forcibly taken by Brunswick's security personnel as he tried to take photos of the vice president outside the parliament building in the capital. On the international scene, in the United States, the record of civil rights pioneer Claudette Colvin has been expunged. At age 15, she was arrested for refusing to give up her bus seat to a white girl in 1955. 66 years later, an Alabama judge expunged her record. Colvin's case occurred 9 months before Rosa Parks' case and was a part of a Supreme Court case that ended bus segregation. Colvin was placed on indefinite probation after her arrest and conviction. She said her cleared record was important to her for the message it would send to her grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And those were the top regional and international stories. I'm Sandy Williams.
And we head now to a quick break. When we return, we'll have your midday sports report. Simon Preston is standing by. Good afternoon, Mr. Preston.
Welcome back. It's now time for Midday Sports. I'm Simon Preston. The West Indies were swept 3-0 by Pakistan in their 3-match T20 series after going down by 7 wickets in the third and final T20 today. Batting first, the Caribbean side posted 207 for 3 off their 20 overs, with skipper Nicholas Pooran top scoring with 64. Shamar Brooks added 49, while Jamaican Brandon King added 43. Mohammad Wazima took 2 for 44 for the home side. In reply, Pakistan reached their target with 7 balls to spare, thanks to Mohammad Rizwan, who top scored with 87. Odin Smith, Romario Shepherd and Dominic Drakes took a wicket each. Meanwhile, Cricket West Indies and the Pakistan Cricket Board have decided that the 3 one-day internationals part of the tour will be postponed until June next year. This decision was taken due to the rise in positive COVID-19 cases in the West Indies camp. The West Indies team members who returned negative results following Wednesday's PCR and today's rapid antigen tests will depart from Pakistan to the Caribbean on Friday. Those who tested positive will complete their isolation in Karachi before their travel arrangements are finalized to allow them to return to the region. The West Indies are also due to face the Netherlands in an ODI series in Amsterdam in June next year. Down under we go now as Australia reached 221 for 2 at stumps on day 1 of the second Ashes test against England in Adelaide today. After winning the toss and choosing to bat, David Warner, 95, and Marnus Labuschagne, 95 not out, have been the top scorers so far for the home side. Steve Smith is unbeaten on 18. Ben Stokes and Stuart Broad have taken a wicket each for the visitors. Australia leads the series 1-0. The second test is a day-night test. Jamaica's esports team is oozing confidence ahead of their debut appearance at the Global Esports Games in Singapore this weekend.
National champion Nicholas Chinloy will be Jamaica's representative at the championship and will be playing Street Fighter V. Chinloy outlines his expectations for the tournament.
It's an honor to represent Jamaica again on the international stage, and I look forward to do so again in the future. Well, the goal is to always to win and walk away with the championship, but I'll be happy with top 8. I've been training every day, so I've definitely put the work in.
Jamaica will be one of 92 countries participating at the championships. The tournament is set to run from December 18 to 19.
And that is it for your Midday Sports Report. I'm Simon Preston. Anthony, it's over to you.
Thank you very much, Simon. And that's where we leave you. That's the Midday News. I'm Anthony Lugg. Join us at 7 for Primetime News. On behalf of the news, sports, and production teams, good afternoon.